Alright, video game based series, you had 1.5 positive reviews and I can't let you get an ego, so let's get to deflating that. Today is Bungo and the Alchemist Gear of Judgement. Based on the same mobile game in Japan, and no, it's not available in the States. But it's a gacha game, with the gacha draws being pretty boy versions of famous Meiji era writers, such as Osamu Dazai, Renosuke Akutagawa, Chuya Nakahara, and Ango Sakaguchi, to name a few. The plot is basically the evil mystic force known as the Taints are trying to delete books by sucking the writer's soul and corrupting them so they can change the story of the book, thus allowing them to delete the book. Thus, the good battle boy writers have to delve into the book and stop this and slay the Taint. This purifies the writer's soul and they join the action squad. This leads to revealing that one of the action boys is actually a taint in disguise, and that their existence threatens all literature. With the message being, literature is important and we should be saved, and some additional comments on the writing process. This is all well and good, and a message I think is important. Also, the use of classic literature can help lead possible viewers to read some very good literature, I assume, as I'm not all too familiar with Japanese literature outside of the obvious. But here's the gale storm that brings down this house of cards. It has maybe 2 characters and a bunch of cardboard cutouts. Spoiler warning, skip to X time, 1, 2, 3, alright. Only 2 characters that matter are Osamu Dazai and the tank clone of Renosuke, as they're bullying each other or something, if you want a joke reason. But if you want a serious reason, that's probably because they did a bunch of delves together. Every other character is your basic trope, or not around long enough to get a character. Some of them show up on other delves into the books, but they don't really add much or have any arcs for them to go through, outside of the I was the flavor of the week author that we all need to save. Also, there's at least a dozen of them, so I would need a guide to tell you who and what titles they did. Most don't really serve a purpose other than to show off, hello, I am a famous writer, and I am available in this video game that you can download right now, as well as be a ladder for the Taint version of Renosuke to run through when he goes full evil. Also, death doesn't really matter. They do this one bit where they kill off Nayo Shiga, but he's only about dead long enough to get a coffee, as he returns with the rest of the cast when they do the whole turnabout, oh no, there's only one of us left. Don't worry, friendship powers, now everyone's back! Alright, spoilers over. Also, as a person who hasn't read most of these stories, I'm not sure this is the best way to create interest, as we only got the synopsis for a few of them, such as Gears and No Longer Human. I don't think we even got the story of How the Moon, but I did skip through part of that arc as it was just full of fluff gags, which the series has another issue with. A lot of part 1 arcs are kinda nothing, as that's the case with Portrait of Hell and How the Moon, even if that later one is actually really good. Even if it's strangely out of place in the series, it's about a guy who falls in love with another boy who doesn't commit suicide because of literature. But as literature disappears, so does the reason he didn't commit suicide, thus he tries again. While that emphasizes the message of the series, it's just out of nowhere and the series shrugs it off and just says, yep, it was a dream, moving on. But if I'm being honest, it was probably the best part of the series. Joke's on them. For me, this is a series trying to sell itself as more, given the pedigree of its message and the topic, as I'm sure people well-versed in Japanese literature might pop a bit when they see one of their favorites or a reference to a title they enjoy. But this is only flimsy wallpaper, hiding the wall covered in the message, cash cow. The series throws a barrage of pretty boys at the wall and hopes you find yourself enthralled with one. But numbers don't make up for how shallow most of the cast is, and if you did have a smaller selection but a deeper focus, maybe that would work, but it was not to be. Only players of the corresponding game or big fans of Meiji-era literature would find this a okay watch. But before we leave, I'm going to take a second to do some cleanup, as before I started the series, my plan was to do random series, before I settled on doing 2020 series. So I have some older scripts lying about that I would like to get rid of. One just so happens to also have pretty boy versions of Meiji-era figures, that being Meiji Tokyo Renka, based on the visual novel of the same name, about Mei Ayazuki who's sent back to the past to meet a plethora of cute boys that love her. This includes Ogai Mori, Hyoka Izumi, Yakuba Kozumi, Otojiru Kawakami, Shunzoro Ishida, Goro Fujita, Tosuke Iwasaki, and Tennichi Shukiyosai, who was the magician that sent her back in time. But as with most reverse harems, only 2 or 3 of them are actually given enough time to be options, those being Mori, Yoshida, and Izumi, with Mori being the main one as he goes through the process of making Mei his fake fiancé. Compared to Bungo with the Alchemist, these characters are at least given some actual characteristics, well, besides Tosuke, as he's the last one to show up. Even if some of these characters are a bit weird, as to make Otojiro Kawakami a cross-dressing geisha out of nowhere, but I guess if they're going to make any of them the effeminate one, I guess the actor-comedian was up there. The series also adopts a more mystical approach, as we get several Japanese spirits, with Yakumo playing the researcher, Goro the spirit police, and Izumi a seer. Mei also finds that she can see these spirits and allows her to find the escaped cat spirit haunting Ishida's painting, which gets her closer to him. Other than that, it's basic reverse harem shenanigans as Mei gets closer to the boys, especially Mori, who she starts to fall in love with, and wishes to make that fake fiancé thing a bit more permanent. But of course, she can't stay here as she isn't from the times, starting the whole "this is so sad, can we get 50 likes" tragic love. This is kind of box standard reverse harem stuff, with the only standout features being his protagonist Mei, who's a pretty fun, good-hearted idiot, and the fun OP, which I think is just a requirement at this point for any series about the Meiji era, as Bungo with the Alchemist also had a pretty solid one as well. But if you enjoy reverse harem series or romance, this is a alright watch, kinda close to the average side of life, but hey, maybe all these handsome boys will do more for you than they did for me, so go nuts.